Hello and welcome to this video and to this project where I am making a Dune inspired fashion look that hopefully would be worthy of the red carpet in theory. Because right now I have absolutely no idea or inspiration or thoughts about what this dress should look like. You know those times when you should have a really good idea, and often you do have good ideas and you can see them in your mind, but then other times it's a complete blank space? I don't know, maybe there's a word for it. You mean like creative block? That's not helping. Anyway, when I committed to doing this project, it was over a month ago, and Fabric Wholesale Direct graciously gifted me fabric for creating this look. But I should probably add, I was the one that suggested that I be gifted this fabric to create a Dune look. Because at that time, I had great visions for what this outfit design should look like. It was totally visualized in my mind. It was great. I was gonna move forward on it. And now we get here when I'm actually needing to make the thing, and my brain is saying, no, you never had a good idea. There's nothing that ever came in your brain that worked for Dune and actually worked physically with fabric. And so now I'm trying to create this look that I know I had a vision for, but now can't seem to see in my mind anywhere, but I do need to move forward on it. And so yesterday was spent trying to find it, not being very successful at finding it, but I played around with a few different smatterings of thought in my brain that maybe could turn into something Dune inspired, which, by the way, have you ever looked at the costumes in Dune and seen the complete disconnect in my mind of like the style? Like, you got like an armor saving you from the desert outfit with a wonderful cape that blows in the breeze. Great, I can picture that. But then you've got the other characters, and it's just, I mean, yes, there's a whole fashion, all otherworldly fashion with all the other looks. But maybe that's just not my specialty, because I'm like trying to find a cohesive look of all of them, but I can't find it. I don't know. And so I'm stuck here trying to be inspired by that, which some of them are really neat and some of them are just really weird. You can disagree if you want to, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's fashion. But now I'm trying to be inspired by it and I don't know what to do. So I think we need to like wrap this picture together of what is happening in this video. Hopefully by the end of this video, we will have a completed look. It's invisible right now, even in my mind. I have no sketch. I had a sketch, but I can't find inspiration for that anymore. Sometimes your brain just says no. So I think a main look that I'm seeing in the Dune costumes, I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands, is structure. It seems like most of their pieces involve structure, except for the capes that blow in the background, which is great. I know how to do that. The structure part, creating that like boxy, geometric, otherworldly, futuristic things is where I'm stuck. And so I have decided to take some thought, ideas, inspiration from historical costumes, and the one that came to mind was like the 1600s, which is not anything I've ever looked at, but I found like some corset patterns that create some interesting structure and kind of like a band around here that's very stiff and sometimes even like sits away from the body, it seems. I especially want that to kind of create like this stiff collar look, I think, to it. And then the flowy chiffon cape thing will like fit inside above it and flow off to the back, maybe. Still deciding. But because I had that direction inspiration, I got a pattern from Corset and Crinolines by Nora Waugh, which is a book I always go to for patterns because they're just really easy to use and great. And so I got that made up in a mock-up. I kind of like the direction it's going, so we're going with that for now. We're gonna create a structured bodice and then sort of a skirt that has a lot of like pin tucks on the hips that then like just poof out when they're finished, kind of, and create this kind of weird structured skirt. With the structured bodice, a thought came to mind of having a separate piece kind of wrap around and create some like circle-ish lines on the front, kind of based on Zendaya's, not just Zendaya's, but like suit look. Is just there's a lot of lines going on there, and so trying to like combine some of those lines into something in the bodice without being too inspired by and also not being too weird looking. Something there. And then I think the under part that like the thing wraps around with the curves in it, the under part is to do some like piping type work that replicates the bumpy part of their suit, which is, I don't know what to call it. It's just like ripply looking. And so kind of replicate that then there's a smooth part. I don't know. It's very, this is my sketch, guys. Yeah, but we're going with it. I kind of have a pattern, and so I'm going to start with that and see what happens. I'm going to use this courtille, which is for corset making, very stiff, and so the under like structure is going to be made all of that, and then I will go over with this gorgeous fabric from Fabric Wholesale Direct. I'll place it on top of the structured pieces and create like the ripply cording, whatever effect that I decide is going to look good with this on top. So I'm going to start with the structure, basically assemble most of the panels for that, and then add this on top and see where it goes from there. We'll see how much it changes as I actually make the thing. Maybe more inspiration will come, but for right now, we're gonna go for it. And guys, this is a test of my design ability, because usually I make something when I'm inspired and see a good vision of it, and so then I make it. And I feel like this is the first time that I don't have much of a vision, but I have to do it. And so this is a good experiment and test of what that looks like to move forward, even when you kind of are like, I don't know what to do. But we'll figure it out. Watch to the end of this video and maybe I won't be so everywhere.
After making some minor adjustments to the pattern, I got it cut out of a black cotton courtille, which will be the base of the bodice and will create the corset structure. I'm cutting 2 layers out so I can sandwich them together and create boning channels in between them. The process of doing this, laying them together and creating all those boning channels, took a good amount of time. But finally, I got all the channels that I wanted sewn in place and could insert the boning. And there is a lot of it. I'm using synthetic whalebone, and I'm going for structure, 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 and you guessed it, more structure. Finally, it's on to attaching the silk outer layer. For the front, I cut it extra large so it has lots of room for all the planned cording. So after this, I realized it needed another piece out of just some random fabric so I could actually sandwich and sew the cording in between them. The black structure piece that I've already created has a bunch of boning in it, and I can't obviously sew through that. My plan was to do alternating large and small cording, following along the curve of the neckline and continuing from top to bottom of this pattern piece. But with the textured look of the straight grain, the cording was hardly noticeable, and also the fabric just wasn't stretching well enough with the curve. So this piece actually got trashed, or actually I salvaged what silk I could from it. And then I restarted, this time with the silk cut on a bias. This will allow for the stretch, but I also felt that having the grain at a diagonal would help the cording show up better, and it did, so much better. I also nixed the small cording because it just wasn't really showing up very well. Instead, I just did some rows of stitching in between the large cording. And here's where a quote-unquote design choice was made. It was taking so long to do these rows that I decided to not go all the way down the front of this piece, and I also nixed the idea of the wraparound thing, creating like a curved look at the front, like I explained in the beginning. I just really wasn't seeing it, and also taking too much time. So instead, I sewed in some cording with a curvy shape. Now it's time to attach an outer layer of silk to all the bodice pieces, and I also serged all the raw edges. Before assembling the pieces, I decided to add some large piping to the back side seams, just to add something different. So with piping, I first attach it to one side, get it sewn in place, and then I line up the second pattern piece. From here, I have that first sewing line to stitch right alongside, which achieves an evenly spaced piping poking out of the seam. Once all the seams are sewn, they're all ironed open, which is a bit tough with how thick and sturdy this fabric is, so it's off to catch stitch them all down. So for the closure, I originally decided to do 2 closures, one on each side of the main front piece. But after doing it, I realized that was unnecessary. I only needed one in order to get it on, so I sewed up the one side. But before I did that, on each side, I attached a bias strip, which will fold back and contain the raw edges. This turned over edge is bound and securely sewn in place, and I can now attach the front piece to the rest of the pieces. This is my first try-on, and I was pretty happy with it. I was liking where it was going. For the under edges of the closure, I bound the edges, and that seam allowance became the underlap of the closure. And we're getting close. Both the top and the bottom edges are folded in, and there's more catch stitching to do to keep that all in place. And then some hooks and thread bars are sewn in to create the closure. And now we can start on the skirt. Actually, let's make them pants. I started off with all the tucks at the hips that I was wanting to create. I'm stacking several pleats on top of each other along the straight edge of the fabric. This edge has been folded down about 8 inches to add some extra structure to all the pleats. I got these all sewn in place. I'm just stitching right along the middle of the pleats, which allows them to just kind of open up slightly. And now I'm cutting out the pant legs. I know, a bit reversed, but I felt like this would be easier to create a pattern with the pleats already done. Now these two fluffy pant legs are sewn together and the front closure is finished and a zipper is attached. Then a waistband. For the hem I wanted, can you guess? You got it, structure, more structure. So I used the entire amount of extra length folded up on each other. So I had about 6 inches to eliminate, so I did a 3-inch fold and then another 3-inch and then hand stitch in place. And that gave a lot of extra fabric structure in that hem to create structure. The pants are done and time for a cape. I've got this one. So for the pattern, I decided on just a bunch of triangles making it up. So I cut out 3 rectangles in various lengths and then cut them diagonally across, creating 2 triangles. So altogether, I had 6 triangles. From here, I attached them all together with the points at the top, and I kind of chopped off like the top 3 inches of that so that I got a wider neckline. And from here, I just left the hem of the cape just a bit wonky with how all those triangles lay. Now for the hood, I wanted to come up with something different because that seems to be the theme so far. So I played around with a square and folded it in half diagonally. I liked how the fold of the chiffon added a different feel to around the face. And then for the attachment of this to the cape, it's a bit odd. So the 2 outer triangles of the cape I left longer at the top of the neckline, and these will crisscross at the front, and this is also where the hood will be attached. So if you watch what I'm doing here, that's how I attached this square hood. It's, again, a bit odd, but I really liked how it turned out. And the last step, which I didn't film, was attaching some clasps to each end of the crisscross part and also the back edge of the cape. These are all clasped to the bodice. So as you can see here, I left the raw edges raw. I didn't hem them or do anything with them, and so there's quite a bit of fraying. I thought that would fit with the Dune theme, but I will say I probably should have hemmed it because it frayed much more than I expected it to, but this is after the shoot, so that's why there's so much fraying. And so with that, this Dune look has come together in a sort of a sense. It was definitely decisions as I just did it, and I think it turned out odd and different, and I think that works for Dune inspired. So with that, it was off to the Little Sahara in Oklahoma, which I didn't know existed, but is also the closest place to me with dunes. And I can tell you, it did not disappoint.